Thank you, sir, for your enlightening speech. Now, may I request Mr. Alexander Van Riet to give his presentation. Mr. Alexander Van Riet is partner at Lenoble Management Consulting. He has more than 25 years of experience as CEO and board member executive in B2B and FMCG markets. He has operated globally and worked in strategic consulting. He is also the author of the book In Pursuit of Chocolate, A Journey of Discovery. Now, please give a big round of applause for Mr. Alexander Van Riet. It's a bit mouthful.
Probably one of the first speakers that runs off the stage as soon as he got introduced. Little clicker thing, there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for having made this possible. I will start my little presentation that I have a confession to make. About 30 years ago, I did something where I thought something that in hindsight I'm not very proud of. Something that it was naive and something that was slightly embarrassing. I went to do an MBA because I thought it would make me a leader. Now, in hindsight, I realize that that's about the same as buying a book on parenthood and thinking that you'll be a good father or mother. It doesn't work that way. You just mentioned parents and the importance of parents. So one of the things that I'd like to do for the next couple of minutes, if I advance, yeah. I'll start by taking a little risk. Now, is any of you expecting a baby in the next 2 weeks? Okay. Because if you are, what I'm going to say next is not for you. Anybody else, do me a favor, take out your mobile phone for me. Go ahead, take out your mobile phones. You have a mobile phone, I know. Take out your mobile phone. Yeah, I'm going to wait till you do it. Take out your mobile phones. All right, hold them up in the air. I want to see those mobile phones in the air. Okay, now do me a favor. Put it on the table in front of you and slide it over to the person next to you. Now, if you want it back in the next 20 minutes, you got to pay him 1,000 rupees. Okay? The only thing that I ask you is not to touch your phone for the next half hour. Now, there's two options. Option number one, you'll be entertained by me. Option number two, you have time for yourself without distraction. I settle for either one. I'll settle for either one. Okay? So, let's talk about timeless leadership. What is timeless leadership? And I think that timeless leadership consists of two different parts. There is the timeless part and the leadership part. I first like to just touch on the leadership part, then we'll jump over to timeless, because as you also pointed out, what is the timeless part of it and how can you make that happen? Leadership, I'll put to you, is three major building blocks. Purpose, process, and people. Purpose, people. Let's go through each one of those. Purpose is something where a leader gives a vision. This person has a vision of what he wants to become. He is willing to have and endure amazing pain and agony in order to get there. Why? He believes in what he can become. When you mentioned about Pakistan and what it can become, it is what people believe. They have to believe in that vision. And sometimes you have to create an alternate reality as a leader. But you got to paint that picture. And once you paint that picture, you have to get people to engage with it and share that vision. Because just like this gentleman, what he's willing to do, if people are willing to put the effort in, it is amazing what people can accomplish. Yeah? It is what Simon Sinek refers to, the why you do it. Why are you here? Why do you do things? If you can tap into that, if you can tap into that, you get things done. Tremendously important. The Americans will refer to the expression, he drank the Kool-Aid. Yeah? That means that you believe so much in it that you drank the Kool-Aid. It became part of you. It became part of your DNA, your values, how you work. It comes from the Jim Jones cult in the United States, where there was a following and people believed so much in what he was doing, they were willing to drink the Kool-Aid, although the Kool-Aid had cyanide in it. Yeah? Now, I'm not proposing that you make your staff or your people, your teams drink cyanide, but the idea is, what is that vision? What is that I have a dream speech? Yeah? If you take a look at Martin Luther King, he didn't say like, it would be really good if. No, he started with, I have a dream. And as a leader, that's the first thing, purpose. You got to give them the dream. You got to have something that people completely believe in. The second part, yeah, is the process. So what you're taking a look at, and how as a leader do you take a look at the process? Now the first thing you have to do as a leader is you have to recognize the elephant in the room. That's not always easy. Yeah, although it's very big, yeah, actually naming the elephant, giving it a flag, so people recognize this is the issue, and we agree on that issue, because if they don't agree on the issue, you're not going to solve it. So first of all, name the elephant in the room. Second part of that is, the question is, how do you eat an elephant? And the old story is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So that's what a leader does. A leader takes that entire massive thing and he deconstructs it. He gets it into bite-sized bits so people can understand what is my part to do in eating this elephant. It's an essential part. So as a leader, one of the things is to recognize it, name it, break it apart so people are not drinking, as they say, from a fire hydrant, right? Ever tried to drink from a fire hydrant? Yeah? At the end of it, you're completely soaking wet and you're still thirsty because you can't drink it because it's just too much in one go. So what do timeless leaders do? Or what do leaders do? They actually, if it's very messy, you bring structure and you make people understand it. But at the same time, when things are very structured and everything is running well, you do the opposite. Because if everything is running well and everything is hunky-dory and you don't change, you're on the right track, the proverbial train is coming down the track and you get run over. And typically that's competition. Now that's difficult as a leader because on the one hand, you're trying to structure and simplify, and on the other hand, as soon as people feel that you've done that, you're going to disrupt it again. But as a leader, you need to do that. You have to actually love the discontinuity. So you structure, and at the same time, there's this dichotomy in there, because you love the discontinuity. And also you have to have a passion for change. You have to like change. If you're a leader and you don't like change, it's going to be tough, because you're going to be fighting yourself all the way. You got to love change. You got to embrace it. Yeah? And you have to find that balance, that creative tension between structure and messiness. So that's the process. It's about the what and the how you do it. The third part is how you manage people. Yeah? So it was purpose, process, and people. And the people element is probably the messiest one. There's the old expression, I wish you a lot of personnel. Now, what do you do? How do you manage people? The first thing is you collect people. Yeah, you got to collect the right people around you that believe in that vision, and you try to let them share that vision. And you know what? If they don't share that vision, you either change them to share it, or you change the people. And you can have very good people, and they just don't fit. And to understand that, you need to get different people to work together. And if you work in an international organization, yeah, that can be a challenge. My management team was absolutely the most diverse that you can imagine. You take it from a nationality, from a religion, from a culture, from a sex, from an educational background. I had everything in that team. And at one point in time I said, but I'm the conductor. To which one of my members said, no, you're not. You're the zookeeper. You make sure that the zebra isn't eaten by the leopard and the leopard doesn't get bitten by the cobra. And that's one of the things that you have to as a leader. You got to get strange animals in one room together. You got to have them share that purpose, that vision that you go, and make them work together. And you have to organize them. You have to organize them in a way that they can work together. Sometimes a little bit disruption, but you got to make them work together. And that's kind of like a zipper. Each little bit of the zipper can do anything on its own. But boy, if you have the zipper work together, and that's that middle part that zips up, that's you as a leader. And as you think about that, if you think about your teams, what are you doing right now to make sure that these particular individuals with all their issues with another and style issues and attitude differences, and some works well under stress and the other one doesn't work under stress, how do you make them zip together? Because that's what you do as a leader, right? That's how to make people work together. So that is the leadership part of it, yeah? That is just purpose, process, and people. Fine, we got that easily done. Then there's a timeless leader. Now, if I would ask you, if you would think of a timeless leader, who would that be? Just pick somebody in your head. My bet is that it's probably somebody who fought opposition, who fought competition, yeah, who was relentless and did not give up, yeah, and the element that is probably unique about them, they're not a fighter, but they're a warrior. Now, what's the difference between a fighter and a warrior? A fighter wants to fight this battle, and I want to win from you. A warrior actually has a purpose, and he does it for a greater cause, right? So, now what makes timeless leadership? I put to you that on the one hand, we have the leadership part, the purpose, process, people, but there's another side, and that is typically underestimated, and that is how you do it. It is around a growth mindset. It is at how you think and act, and it's around authenticity. And authenticity is a large part, probably, what your parents have given you, just to hook into what you said before. Now, let me go through each one of those. A growth mindset. As you know, it was just introduced, I come from Dubai. Dubai has a little bit of growth going for it. And if you take a look at what is there, it is absolutely amazing. The Burj Khalifa, the Burj Al Arab, the palm that was built, right? But that growth mindset comes with something very unique. And that is, it is unreasonable. I worked in a water company, just like what you have here on the table in the UAE. It's an organization that went from 0 in 8 years to become the #1 water brand in the UAE. Now, water is a very strange thing, yeah? Because normally water, the product, is odorless, colorless, and tasteless. How do you sell something that's odorless, colorless, and tasteless, right? But we did. And the demands that were made on me were absolutely absurd sometimes. And I would have friends, they would tell me, but Alexander, how can you do this? That's not reasonable what they ask. And my answer was, well, right, but if in Dubai they were reasonable, do you think they would have had a Burj Khalifa and a Burj Al Arab and a palm? No. So one of the things as a leader is you got to have a growth mindset, and you got to have this extreme thing sometimes, of which you might even doubt yourself, but your people can actually do it if you believe in it. There is for those people that are into Pixar and monsters, they will recognize this thing, Mike. And Mike had a dream and he wanted to do something, and everybody told me he couldn't do it, and he just kept on doing it. Yeah, and in the end, he got where he needed to be. Now, that's the kind of attitude that you have to have as a leader. You have to have that growth mindset against all odds. Yeah? And it also works in a smaller world, in your private individuals, how you treat your kids, how you treat your family, how you treat people at work. It is around everyday life decision, having that positive attitude. And I'll tell you at the end my story, my personal story, which took me around the world. But it's around a growth mindset, which needs to be part of your fiber and how you operate in your organization. Let me tell you a second story. When I was younger, I lived in a town and there was a fire. And it was a bad fire. It was such an intense fire that the heat alone, if you've ever been close to a fire, you know how warm it can get. And it was so hot that the fire trucks couldn't get to the heat. Yeah, it was an industrial heat. And the fire truck stayed 1 block away. And then all at once you could hear this fire engine coming from around the turn, and it came around the turn, and this particular fire truck, it passed all the other trucks. And as it got there, it hit the brakes, and the brakes were screaming all the way, and it stopped right in front of the fire, and the guys got out and started putting out the fire. Now, what do you think happened? The other firemen are seeing this, and they're going like, we better get out there. So they jumped in their trucks, went out there, and they put out the fire. And a lot of property was saved, and lives were saved. And the mayor of my town was really, was amazed at that. He said, I want to have a celebration for what the firemen did. And they had a parade, and they had on the park, they had hot dogs and barbecues, and it was a celebration and flags and stuff like that. And the mayor got onto stage and says, I want to thank the fire department for the amazing thing that they've done, the lives they've saved, the property they have saved in our town. And I'd like to have the fireman who drove the fire truck, I want him on stage, I want to give him an award. And the guy came on stage, and the mayor said, sirs, thank you very much. Amazing what you've done. Is there anything I can do for you? Is there anything I can do for you? To which the fireman said, yes, could you please approve the new set of brakes for my truck? Now, what effectively had happened is that, his truck didn't break, but he went past it and he started putting out the fire. And what really happened was he didn't know it couldn't be done, so he went out and did it. Let me say that one more time. He didn't know it couldn't be done, and therefore he went out and did it. And that's one of these things that you have to have as a mindset as a leader. Even when you see something that can be done, go ahead and do it anyway. And let people call you nuts. Yeah? But you got to pass that. You got to pass over what other judgments are from other people. So growth mindset, number one, growth mindset. If you don't have a growth mindset, do not even think about becoming a timeless leader, because you have to have that. You got to see the growth, the silver lining, or the gold lining in everything. Second part. How do you think and how do you act? So, because great leaders think and act differently. First of all, they are obsessive learners. Yeah? If you describe yourself as an obsessive learner or an obsessive observer, you're probably on the way. Because that's what you need to do. You need to continuously learn, have this hunger, figure out what goes on. Why is this happening? Yeah? And they consistently ask, my favorite question that my teams always make fun of me is, what is the next best alternative? If you ask yourself, what's the next best alternative, you at least open up your mind to something else is possible. Now, if that something else is not as good as what you had in mind, then of course you do the first thing. Yeah? What else can I do? Arie de Geus is a guy who was working for Shell in the 1980s, 1990s, wrote a book, The Living Company, which is really around scenario playing. And he taught Shell about scenario playing. And what he said is, I'm not worried about the scenario itself that we play out, but I want managers, I want leaders to go through the experience of how do you scenario play. Because a variant of that might happen, and that way you have trained your muscle memory on how to solve problems. And you make roadmaps. And what it also does, it allows you as a business leader not to look in the business, but at the business. Yeah, you don't want to look in the business, at the business, so take the view of the bigger picture. Two pictures here. The first one is a dock. It's actually at Fort Myers. And that particular dock is the dock at the house of Thomas Edison. Now, Thomas Edison, we know, a very prolific inventor. He's got most of the patents on his name. I think he's got over 1,000 patents or in the US alone, and over 2,500 patents worldwide. Absolutely crazy. I think in his most prolific year, he did more than one patent a day. Absolutely amazing. Now, why his dock there? One of the things that he needed to do, he needed to think. He wanted to be quiet, and he needed to think. Now, he was already helped by the fact that he could sometimes focus without being disturbed, because what people don't know, he was actually profoundly deaf, which helped, because that meant that he said, I don't hear the noise around me. The second thing is that he knew that if he went fishing, if he went to sit on the dock, people said, don't disturb Thomas, he's fishing. So he would go and sit fish and do his thinking there. He had only one problem. When you were fishing, you got these annoying fish. So actually he had a rod, a line, a bob, and a weight. But he didn't go with bait because he didn't want to be disturbed by the fish. But that was his quiet time. Now I ask you as business leader, maybe not fishing, but when is the last time you built in quiet time? I dare you to do it, to sit down on a chair, take your favorite chair, and just think about the business. Don't write anything down, just think about the business, but think about it deeply. in most of the most difficult things to do. Yeah? So that's about thinking. There's also the acting. How do you act differently? The other gentleman that you see here is Werner von Braun. He is actually, was at NASA. He is the father of space travel, let's say. And he was famously heard quoting one time, you know, it takes 65,000 errors before you qualify to make a rocket to go to the moon. Now, think about that. If you're a leader, yeah, if you want to get things done, if I tell you before you start, yeah, you're going to fail 65,000 times, and then still say, I'm still going to do it. Yeah? To make that parallel again towards, because I had Edison on here, the parallel to Edison, right? Edison who found the iridescent light, the light bulb. And somebody said at one point in time, like, well, you're not making much progress. To which he said, well, actually, that's not true. I've already learned 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. That's that mindset you got to have. That's that mindset, and then how you think differently. So on the timeless side, we have a growth mindset, you have thinking and acting, and then there's authenticity. And authenticity is one of the most important parts as a leader that you have to show. And authenticity is that you have to be worthy of belief and trust. And on that one, you cannot fake authenticity. It's just impossible. Yeah? People will know. It's like the book Blink if you haven't read it, but it talks about, you know, people know instantly if it's true or not. Yeah? Now, it is human nature to judge. Everybody does it. You see somebody and you judge them. You can't help it. I mean, that's what we do. It's probably one of the great things that we do, except for outside of looking forward in time, that we can do as humans. The other thing we can judge. Now, the interesting part about judging is that there's a very big difference in how things get judged. We judge ourselves by our intentions, but we'll judge others by their actions. So I will judge you by what you do on a daily basis, right? Although you will judge yourself, whatever action did, with your intent. And they might not be the same, or they might not look the same. As you become a leader, as you grow up in an organization, yeah, people are always watching you. Every action you take, every coffee boy you talk to, every operator you encounter with, every senior manager that you're in, how you check into a hotel, everything you do, trust me, somebody's observing you and judging that action. So you can't be very structured on the one hand and then be unstructured on the other one. You have to be coherent. You have to have an authenticity to you. That is how you operate. Now, you might be a messy operator, or you might be a very structured operator. That's fine. If you're a messy operator, don't try to pretend to be a structured one, please. Because people go like, huh, right? If you're very structured, don't try to create messiness just because you think, oh, it doesn't work. You have to be authentic to your style, to what you do, because people recognize it. Yeah. Sometimes I hear people say, do as I say, not as I do. Excuse my French here, but that's bullshit. I don't buy that. Yeah. You gotta walk the talk. Because if you don't walk the talk, yeah, how do you expect other people to do what they are saying? It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. So you have to be very genuine. And in the book Fish, they talk about when you're somewhere, be there. Put your telephone away. Don't think about it. It's one of the hardest things to do, to listen, right? But be there with somebody. Really be there. Listen to what they're saying. And what's more important, listen to what they're not saying, but what you're seeing. Because that's what leaders do. That's what timeless leaders do. They're authentic, and they also have a way of working. I always have to laugh. I had a senior manager of a very large organization that I talked to the other day, you know, a multi-billion-dollar company, and he says, CEO, my door is always open. You know what I told him? Well, do me a favor, walk out then. Don't expect the customer service representative to walk into your CEO office. Don't expect a line operator to walk in that office. Yeah? Take the Six Sigma Gemba approach. Walk. If that door's always open, why don't you walk out and go take a look what happens and listen to people and ask them and be authentic, be really interested. It is amazing what you're going to learn, because what is being told from the bottom into the organization, to the supervisor, the manager, the whatever the division head to you, by the time it gets to you, it's like Chinese whispers, as they say. What you hear is not what's happening. One walk in the plant, one walk in your customer service. I would love for hotel operators to actually try to check in themselves or pay their bills. Yeah? Go on the floor, do it. If you're an engineer in the company, yeah, get your hands dirty. But even if you're not an engineer, go in and take a look what really happens. Go sit next to that customer service rep and listen into the conversation. It's amazing what you learn. It's amazing what you learn. So get your hands dirty, be authentic, be out there, talk to people. So there's 2 parts to it. Yeah, again, timeless leadership. The first part is the leadership. It's purpose, process, and people. The second part, timeless, growth mindset, thinking, acting, and authenticity. Now, I will put to you that the first part, that's what is being taught in schools. Now, first of all, in Pakistan, obviously, I've learned people need to stay in school more and longer. That will add a lot of value. But we're talking about purpose, and people in MBAs, they learn about visioning and about process and deconstructing processes and about organizational designs. Yeah? But where do people learn about how do you get a growth mindset in? How do you inspire the people in your organization to have a growth mindset? Yeah? Ritz and Branson once said, whenever somebody comes into my office, yeah, and they come with a new suggestion, I always say yes. Now, can you always do that? Maybe not. But I put to you that 99% of the cases you can say yes. You can say yes. Now, tell me more about it. And you might use a version of it, or you say, it's a great idea, maybe not this week, but in 2 weeks from now. Yeah? But say yes to that. That growth mindset is so incredibly important. But that leadership part, the growth mindset, the thinking and acting, where is that in our educational systems? Where is that in your organization? Where do you teach people how to think and act differently and out of the box? As a timeless leader, that's your role. Because that will open up the organization, and that's authenticity. And actually, at this point in time, because that is undervalued, also with Fahar Kamali, who was mentioned earlier, we're looking at a leadership masterclass, and that these things are going to be in there. It's being developed right now, because you've got to have that mindset. Yeah. Now, let me go back to one of the things that I mentioned earlier on about a personal story. About 7 years ago, I was running a large organization, a company with 22 factories worldwide. I was traveling the world. I was flying more than a Lufthansa pilot, basically. But that was not my job. My job was actually working in the rest of the time. And I had an absolutely phenomenal week. In Vienna, Monday morning, I had a board meeting. On Tuesday, early in the morning, I jumped on a plane and flew to Kuala Lumpur. We had a dinner with the team in Kuala Lumpur. We had the next morning, on Wednesday morning, we had a meeting with a client, signed a contract. Wednesday afternoon, I jumped on a plane and I flew to China. In China, we opened up a new factory, absolutely brand new factory, beautiful new machines, fireworks, the whole thing. Thursday night, I flew back. Thursday night, I landed, and in the flight in Vienna lands the first thing in the morning. I arrived Friday morning, and I go home, I take a shower, take my kids to school, and go to the office. And I got about 2 hours to prepare for the meeting with the CEO about the CapEx for next year. I'll make a long story short. I went into that meeting very well prepared. It was a bit odd, because the HR manager was sitting there as well. Now, one of the things that I had done before, about 2 months before, we had done a big merger and acquisition. Short story, hour and a half later, I was fired. Thank you very much, leave your keys at the front door. Now, don't feel sorry for me. The conditions were very agreeable. So financially, not an issue. So I got home, and I said, hon, got an issue. So what do we do now? Because one of the things that did come with that contract, I had to stop working, but one of the things that I could not do is I could not work in the industry, I could not work one step up or one step down in the same value chain for 2 years. It was compensated very well, so I was pretty happy. But at this point in time, you should have seen my wife. She had this fear in her eyes. what is this guy going to do sitting on the couch at home? Can you imagine me sitting on your couch every day, 24 hours a day? Not a good thing. So sat down and I said, why don't we travel the world? Why don't we just take the kids out of school, backpacks, travel the world for a year? We'll see what happens. If looks could have killed, I would have been a dead man right there. So the next morning, I wake up, walk downstairs, walk into the living room. My wife is sitting at the dinner table with her computer. And she looks up and she says, it's better if we travel west than east. I said, what? She says, it's better if we travel west than east. So what are you on about? She says, I think we should make that travel around the world. Well, actually, for 4 weeks, we tried to say that we're not going to do it. But in the end, we went to do it. And my wife had one of her wonderful little sayings. She says, if the world gives you lemons, make lemon juice. And take lemon juice and make it into lemonade. And that's what we did. So on that stuff, I'd like to end with a very short couple of pictures. And I apologize, there are some family pictures in there. But if you take a look at this, one of the things that about a growth mindset, when you have a setback, it's actually a golden opportunity to do something different. I was so passionate about it that afterwards, actually, I wrote a book, which is that book In Pursuit of Chocolate. By the way, it has nothing to do with chocolate, but and it's downloadable on Kindle. And this, what I've done is I've just taken a couple of the pictures. It's only about like 2 minutes or so, and it's a selection of about 16,000 pictures that we took, because we were on the road for almost a full school year. And as you look at these pictures, when you think about leadership, the reason why I picked these 2 pictures is each one of these things was either designed or created or made, and I bet you it was done by somebody who had a vision. That first guy that was doing the plank, it was probably done by somebody who had a vision, who wanted to create something amazing, and was able to get other people to follow suit, and make that happen. So on that happy note, I want to thank you very much. I will actually play this video clip to round up, and as you look at it, again, just think about what that person who created that, what he must have thought. And right after that, you can grab your phones again, and you don't have to pay your neighbor. Let's see if this works. Thank you very much.